Hello, Garland Nixon here with Laith Marouf. He runs a site called freepalestine.video. We're going to talk a little bit about the site. And of course, most importantly, we're going to get an update on all the important news going on in the Middle East and beyond. Let's talk. Hello, Garland here with one of our most important guests, Laith Marouf. We learned so much from him. And might I add, we learned from his website, and it is called freepalestine.video. That's right, FPTV. You can look there and see, man. That's like unbelievable. Tremendous video you get right out of Lebanon and Syria and occupied Palestine, etc. You can see there we've got the latest episodes. You can field reports, military operations, and very, very importantly, it gives you an opportunity not just to sit in the chat, and of course you're going to share this on all your social media platforms, but it gives you an opportunity to take action. He has there under Donate to Free Palestine TV, help fund our community television station so we can bring you live information from the war for the liberation of Palestine. And all of your donations you can do one time, or if possible, and like I said, if you might not have a lot, if you can donate heavy, that's great. If you can only do $5, guess what? Click on the monthly. And whatever you can do, $5, $10, $20 a month, very important. That's what will keep Free Palestine TV going. And it is the information that we get. It is the flow of journalism that is what changes things. The reason, let's face it, if we're honest about this is a horrific, unthinkable massacre, and it is an absolute genocide. However, the empire's this genocide is nothing new for the empire. This is what the empire does: genocide after genocide. But what's different is this: people like Laith Marouf on the ground taking the risks. The documentation that we see all over the social media coming out like never before. What makes this genocide different is that the information comes out so that people in the U.S. empire and beyond can see what their governments are doing. That's why we have people in the street. That's why we have the fury and anger, particularly over this horrible genocide, because people like Laith and his partners at freepalestine.tv are getting such important information out, and people are knowledgeable about what's going on now and they can push back. That's what's changing the world. freepalestine.video. freepalestine.video. Go there now. Of course, you can partake of all of the information, and also it's critical that you, if possible, you become a monthly subscriber, if not just one time. All right, Laith Marouf, let's get going now that we've hit the really important stuff. As I said, it is critical. It's important. This is just one show. We do this once a week. It's important for our people, but this is what makes the world different, this kind of information. All right, Laith Marouf, let's start here. Houthis. I saw a video yesterday where one of their missiles struck Ben Gurion Airport. When I look at the last couple of weeks with Ansar Allah, they're shooting down MQ-9 Reapers like ducks. They've become sitting ducks now. They shoot them down once a week. At minimum, they're done. We've got F-18s sliding over into the sea. No, they certainly weren't shot down. They just, made a wrong turn and it happened to slip into the sea. There are a lot of people that believe that. I'm highly suspicious. I'll just say that. Meanwhile, Ansar Allah says they shot it down. If I gotta say, who do I believe, Ansar Allah or the U.S. military? It ain't never going to be the U.S. military. But this is very serious stuff. But they fire a missile. Their missiles go through the entire Western air defense. People forget that there are French ships, there's Italian ships, there's NATO ships all along trying to intercept these things. And some of the vassal states there trying to intercept these military missiles all along the way. They go through all of it and strike Ben Gurion Airport at the heart of Israel. And this has really upset the Israelis. But meanwhile, I think Haifa got hit. They're throwing missiles in. The level of technological advancement of Ansar Allah is simply amazing. What do we know about this? What's going on here, Laith Marouf?
Well, as you explained there, this missile went through all the air defenses on its way. And you mentioned all the frigates and destroyers that NATO has there, as well as the Saudi, Jordanian, Egyptian, and Zionist air defenses inside the colony, and the American THAAD systems, two American THAAD systems that are inside the Zionist colony. So this shows us that number one, the Ansarullah and the Yemeni military have been advancing their technology over the last 17 months, have been testing and retesting these missiles, and they finally found a perfect arrangement to get through all those systems. And remember, every one of those THAAD missiles or HASTE missiles or Aero 3 missiles are hundreds of millions of dollars each missile, and the amount of missiles that have to be fired to take down this hypersonic missile is like probably 10 times, if not 100 times, the cost of creating the missile by the Yemenis. So that's very clear that the scientific research in Yemen is twinkling with the missiles that they have as we go with this battle, and that's something that only usually big military manufacturers are able to do. Yemen is joining this club. Another thing that came out of Yemen is that we heard today American Air Force is avoiding the airspace on top of Sana'a, the capital of Yemen, and the mountains around it, because Yemen just deployed new air defenses, ones that, as we have seen, have been tested over the last 17 months, been able to take down the MQ-9 and now F-18s. Whatever new air defenses are being positioned around Sana'a now are a threat to the F-35s. And this is why we're seeing now the F-35s avoid the whole airspace near and of Sana'a, the capital. That's something that's unique. We haven't seen yet F-35s try to hide away from anybody else's air defenses. And the last time we saw anyone capture an F-35 in their radars was Iran a few months ago, showing that its radars has seen visually the F-35. So maybe they transferred some of this technology, but now the United States is going to be thinking 3-4 times before they, try to attack Sana'a anywhere near its airspace.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's getting to a point where the world is looking at this conflict and they're saying the United States empire, this world sprawling empire, is literally at war with Yemen, and the only thing they can do is bomb a detention center or a gathering of civilians. But when you look at it, militarily speaking, the U.S. is taking very expensive military losses, and I don't see Yemen taking much in the way of military losses. You have to look at this, all things, and let me add this. A military is about goals. If one side says, I want to take this piece of property, or I want to close this area off, who is achieving their goals? Well, clearly, Yemen is achieving their military goals, both in the restricting the Red Sea from traffic, and in striking Israel and whatever they deem necessary that they want to strike. The U.S. seems to be achieving no military goals. I interpret it as this: Yemen's winning this war.
Oh, yes. And Yemen right now said that they're instituting a blockade on exports of oil and gas from the United States through the Red Sea, Arabian Sea, and the Indian Ocean, which means that they will be hitting any American gas and oil transportation in the area. That's going to hurt badly the American exports. And, remember the hit on Ben Gurion is very crucial for the Zionists, this airport. They not only all the civilian transportation is going through Ben Gurion, but also much of the weapons deliveries that the United States is sending including those GBU missiles, the bunker busters. So the if Ansarullah continue to disrupt air traffic into Ben Gurion, and somehow also start targeting other smaller airports that could be replacement for deliveries of weapons, the Zionists will be feeling it on the battlefield in Gaza. They'll be feeling it directly as a result of this. And because the disruption of air traffic to Ben Gurion led to 100 international airline companies saying that they're going to be stopping all their travel to Tel Aviv. We saw the vassal Jordanian regime earlier today announced that they're going to be accepting flights that are supposed to go to Tel Aviv to land in Amman, Jordan, and they're going to be organizing buses going from the airport from Amman to the borders of occupied Palestine. We also heard the other vassal state, the United Arab Emirates, announced that it's quadrupling its flights from the UAE into the Zionist colony to kind of give us another route and take the risk that all the other international air carriers are refusing. So that shows you how much of a house slave the Emiratis are. They're risking all their civilian jets. They're risking the lives of their workers for their airlines just to deliver on what the Zionists need.
Yeah. Also, I read that. Well, two things. So let me go to the next thing. I also have read that Yemen has said they're making great leaps in technology, and they have some other things coming. And from the looks of their missiles, this is apparently a new missile. I read today that they said they were testing out this. There's some statements in the news that they were testing a new missile. Well, the old one seemed to strike anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But they've said they've got some more technology coming, and from the looks of things, I kind of believe them. Iran apparently has also exhibited a new missile that they have.
Yes, a few hours ago, the Iranian military announced on Iranian official television, showed the videos of launching of a new hypersonic missile, and it's hitting a target that's 5 meters wide. So that shows you how much precision there is. And they announced that it has advanced maneuverability and new fins on the head, the warhead, and on the tail that allow it to change trajectory at any moment in its path to its target, which makes it impossible to be shot down by any air defenses, including the THAAD and the Arrow 3. And once we saw this release a few hours by the Iranians, we can understand it's basically the same new weapon that Yemen has just used on the Ben Gurion airport. This is, it's easy for a hypersonic or ballistic missile to get near the target because they go up into the atmosphere, the highest levels of atmosphere before they come down. The trick is, can it avoid the incoming missiles at it once it's closer to its target? And here we have the solution. We saw during Truth for Promise 1 and 2 videos of those hypersonic missiles changing trajectory in the middle of the air. The new fins and kind of gyro tails that they have, thrusters on the back, are making them even more impossible to defend against. And clearly, if this war continues on this path and the Israelis launch some crazy attack on Iran, the results of destruction in the Zionist colony are going to be tremendous.
I certainly agree. Syria, before we get to Gaza, I understand that there's two things I want to ask you about. Number one, and that is, well, let's start with this. I understand that there's more massacres going on, that there's terrible things going on. Let's start with that.
Yes, well, it seems like the turn of the Druze community has arrived in terms of massacres at the hands of HTS and these Wahhabi death squads. And it started 4 days ago when HTS militias attempted to enter Jeramana neighborhood in the south of Damascus city. Jeramana neighborhood is mainly populated by the Druze of Syria that escaped the massacres in 1967 during the occupation of the Golan Heights by the Zionist colony. So these are Syrian citizens that are refugees from the Golan Heights from 1967, and they, if our viewers may know this, the Druze inside the Golan Heights, the ones that stayed, also refused to take Israeli citizenship. So these are kind of the most patriotic Syrians around, and definitely the most anti-Zionist Druze in the region, the Syrian Druze from the Golan Heights. So the Zionists have a vendetta against the Druze of Jeramana, and that's why HTS was ordered, it seems like, to begin ethnically cleansing them, punishing them for their resistance for the last 60 years. And that resulted in the Druze communities in Sueda, in the far south of Syria, mobilizing armed militias to go to defend Jeramana, and a huge battle ensued between HTS and Druze militias in Jeramana, in the other Druze villages on the way all the way to Sueda. And the Israelis seem to have wanted to achieve two goals in this. One is to separate the Druze in Sueda from the Druze in Jeramana, and to kind of create two classes of Druze. And the Israelis acted out like they are intervening to protect the Druze of Sueda, attacking HTS convoys that are going to Sueda and their gathering positions, but didn't intervene in the massacres against Jeramana. And this is why, because the Israelis want to birth a new leadership for the Druze in Syria. And as long as the Druze in Jeramana that are patriotic and anti-Zionist are there, they have the leadership of the political class within the Druze community. And this led to also the Druze here in Lebanon getting really anxious. Communities came out in the streets here in Lebanon, cutting the roads, setting fire on tires and so on. And the highest ranking kind of Druze political leader, John Balat here in Beirut, the leader of the Socialist Party, ended up going to Damascus to try to negotiate with al-Julani some ceasefire and safety for the Druze community. And he came back saying it seems like they're not able to reach an agreement. And that's why we're seeing a continuation of clashes around the Druze communities in Damascus and south of it.
Wow. Also, I think Israel's been bombing. There's a weird relationship going on, because it seems to me that HTS seems to be, shall we say, Zionist puppets, but then Israel bombing HTS positions. They're bombing near the palace. Can you make sense of this?
Yes. So, there's two parts to the bombings that Israel is doing. One is targeting everything that's left over in terms of military technology structures in Syria. So the scientific academies, the manufacturing, locations for missiles, for weapons in general, as well as the machining for tanks fixing, and all of those mechanic areas for all the military pieces that Syria has. And that clearly Israel wants to do to make sure that if in the worst case scenario for itself, that there's a coup in Syria or a revolution in Syria, and a patriotic Syrian comes into power, that they'll find themselves with no weapons to fight Israel. Okay, and the HTS is happy with that. They're fine, HTS, with that. And on the other, we see these theatric attacks. One on, as I said, a gathering of HTS, but didn't target where the HTS fighters are, but where their vehicles are. I was just watching a news report from an Israeli television station a few hours ago, and it showed, the infrared and so on, and how the Israelis purposefully didn't hit the location where all these Wahhabi death squads were gathered, the building they're in, but hit their garages, basically. Okay, and so it's theatrics, including this attack outside the presidential palace in Damascus, all theatrics to make it look like HTS is not in the back pocket of the Zionists, and that somehow these HTS Wahhabi are going to face off with Israel at some point, which is not true. So that's the theatrical part, and the true part is the destruction of Syria's ability to ever be a threat to the Zionist colony.
What do we know about Israel? Apparently, they passed something. I don't know if it was because of Knesset or if it just came out of their the government leaders that said they want to occupy all of Gaza. And I understand that was within the last few hours, maybe.
Oh yes, there was a cabinet meeting for the Israeli cabinet, and they had a vote, and they decided that they're going to reoccupy all of Gaza. There was statements by Ben Gvir calling for the starvation, openly starving all the population, let them all die. And there was kind of a few fights inside the cabinet meeting because the other ministers were telling Ben Gvir that you're putting us in trouble by saying these things publicly. They basically agree with him that they want to starve the population, but they're not happy that he's saying it publicly and worried about the supposed effects on them being arrested under international law for these things, which is very far off. I don't think that's going to ever happen if the Zionist colony is not defeated militarily. And we look at the continued attacks, daily attacks on Gaza, and the attacks in the West Bank continuing. By the way, there was multiple raids over last night, and hundreds of young men were arrested, detained, and the starvation campaign in Gaza continues, where I think almost like 60 children have died over the last few days from malnutrition and famine. And it doesn't seem like anyone will be stopping the Zionists. Look at what they just did to the Gaza flotilla boat a few days ago. I mean, the Israelis took a helicopter with a special force carrying 2 drones, landed on the edge of Malta, fired those drones on an unarmed civilian boat carrying aid in international waters, then got back on their helicopter and went back all the way to Palestine. The Maltese government said not one word. Okay, not one EU country said anything for the violation of territory and airspace of Malta, a member of the EU. And above and beyond that, the Maltese Navy and Coast Guard took hours to intervene to put the fire out on the boat, and it's called the Dignity boat, and eventually threatened the lives of the activists if they attempted to dock the boat in Malta. So the boat till now is circling in international waters with no port to dock in order to fix up the damage on it. So you could see how all of the EU were involved and are involved right now in the starvation campaign of Gaza.
Well, I've said this: NATO clearly is the U.S. empire's war machine. It's this worldwide war machine, and that's all it is. NATO is just every one of these operations is a quote NATO operation because it is the war machine of the empire, and that's all NATO is. I'm trying to get that. There's something else I want to show, but for some reason they don't want me to show it. We'll do the best we can. Okay. Well, I see why. So let me try. Let me try it. They've got other problems also in occupied Palestine. We'll do the best we can. See, this stupid ad here doesn't want to close. But anyway, they've got a gigantic wildfire. Look at that. This darn thing. There we go. Wildfires. No surprise. So Israel, and they've got could have been a global leader in handling wildfires. Well, I guess that's pretty much out. But to be a model country, it must reorder its priorities. Instead of seeking revenge, it must make an effort to protect its citizens. Yeah, right. So that's the other part of it. Man, Israel seems to be, for all of the them talking about being such a great country, the most powerful country in the world, blah blah blah. Seems like Mother Nature's taking its toll on Israel. Mother Nature's not happy with Israel either, is it?
Oh yes, because obviously the colonists didn't like the nature in Gaza. They wanted something that looked like it's Europe or North America. So they brought with them all these conifers, these trees that are not used to the weather in the area, and they planted tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of these conifers over Palestinian villages that they ethnically cleansed in 1948 to hide the massacres and hide the archaeological sites of the Palestinians. And these trees go up in flames every summer because they can't handle the weather. And the way that they grow, they block all the sun under them. Nothing grows on the ground, but then all the pine seeds, the coil, the needles of the
The
pine trees.
cones, yeah, the pine cones and pine needles, yeah.
Yes, they fill the ground and they become very easily to set to fire. So yes, nature is rejecting the colonists and the plants that he brought to colonize the land. Look at our natural organic plants that are indigenous to here. They are all used to this weather, the rain and then hot and then rain and then hot. And so olive trees, you can burn an olive tree, a whole olive tree, you can burn it. As long as it has root, it will reflower, and leaves will grow again. These trees that they brought the Zionists with them, one spark and it's all gone. So, we saw also how the Zionists tried to blame the Palestinians for these fires. You remember, like when these fires started, they started claiming that the Palestinians started them, and then we found out videos actually of Zionist colonists that are setting Palestinian fields in the West Bank on fire. Actually, this is it, and we've seen videos of Israeli soldiers during the war on Lebanon, using what do you call them, trebuchets, homemade trebuchets to throw fire bombs into Lebanon and fire gasoline to set fire into South Lebanon. This is the actions of the Zionists. Every time the Zionists, accuse somebody of something, it is really a confession.
Yeah, it looks like things aren't going well for them. I did want to ask you also, just a couple things around the area. I have to ask you because we don't get anything in the West. What's the current state of affairs in Turkey after the leader of after the mayor got kidnapped and or arrested, whatever the case may be, and then we saw that there was unrest all over Turkey, and all the news has gone dark from Turkey. Pretty much, then we get nothing about what's going on in Turkey except when I talk to you every week.
Yeah, it's been really hard to get any news from there, even in Arabic. This is definitely an achievement for Erdogan. And so, like the main Arabic channels, including the Saudis that could be his competitors, are not giving this story much space. So honestly, I have tried to find any update on what had happened to the mayor of Istanbul in news that I can read, and I'm not able to find anything. I mean, I think the Zionists and the Americans are probably jealous of Erdogan's ability to control the story so much. I don't think Trump can control a story like Erdogan did. So yeah, I don't really have any update on that. We can see, the only thing that I can tell you is that these troubles are not gonna just disappear. The news may disappear about it, but the trouble in Turkey, the underlying things that are causing troubles for Erdogan are here to stay because they haven't been addressed, mainly the status of Alawi and Kurdish and Armenian Turks, the status of secularism versus Islamism. Those are things that Erdogan is avoiding by continuing to be involved in wars, just like Netanyahu is avoiding the main issues inside the Zionist colony by continuing with his wars.
You know, one of the things in our discussion long ago, and I said I felt for quite a while there's a lot of anger and unrest in Africa, and in the event that there's a broad war in the Middle East, there's a lot of Muslims in Africa and a lot of just African people that aren't Muslims that are furious at the empire. It seems to me that the Sahel region has been pulling away from imperial machinations. They've been pushing back against colonialism quite successfully. And, you know, in talking to various Africans now, the leader, Ibrahim Traore, the leader of Burkina Faso, it seems that he's taken on an almost, you know, a heroic kind of model for a lot of African people that I talk to here. And of course, the empires threaten him. They bring in an old Uncle Tom guy, house slave, Michael Langley, general, to come in and go to the Senate. Oh, he's doing something wrong with his gold. When the colonialists start talking about you're doing something wrong with your gold, you know, of all things, you know, the greatest hypocrisy ever. But that means that you're not letting them steal it. That's what you're doing wrong. I was listening to a guy yesterday who said Burkina Faso had 3,600 kilometers of paved roads, and now he's doing 5,000 kilometers per year, that he's making it a better country. And I believe that the empire is pushing it to the point where they're going to see violence against their bases and their interest in Africa. I've also heard there are a lot of Africans who are traveling to Burkina Faso saying, you know, how can we help? How can we fight the imperialists, or how can we protect them? Your thoughts on what's going on in Burkina Faso? There seems to be a symbolic nature to that going on in Africa. Your thoughts on Burkina Faso?
Yeah, it's the symbols are one of the most dangerous things for imperialism, colonialism, and so it doesn't really. You know, we both can agree that Ibrahim Traore is doing great, but even if he isn't, just his symbol of being defiant to the West and you know, pushing for the sovereignty of his people is threatening American existence in Africa, is putting ideas in other African people's minds that could also think that they can be independent and sovereign. So this is what is the most dangerous thing about Ibrahim Traore and Burkina Faso. And look at how much his movement inspired his neighbors in Mali and Niger to have their own revolutions against the puppets that were in government, and then eventually have this confederacy with Burkina Faso. And all the neighbors around Burkina Faso that are still vassals of the French and the English are really looking behind their back all the time now. We saw demonstrations in Nigeria over the last week in defense of President Ibrahim Traore. And Nigeria is the most populous country in Africa and is the biggest exporter of oil outside Algeria. So this is a country that the United States and the English really covet control of, and have, worked against any revolution in Nigeria since the 1950s and 60s. And so those demonstrations that came out in the streets of Nigeria, they got beaten heavily by the Nigerian police, and the Nigerian anti-terrorism squad spent the last few days raiding the homes of activists that took onto the podium during these demonstrations in Nigeria. So you could see how worried the state of Nigeria is, and behind it the West, that at any moment, because three of the neighbors of Nigeria, Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso, have moved on into this sovereigntist position with a confederacy, and the three countries also have seen almost disappearance of any attacks by Wahhabi death squads like Boko Haram or Al Qaeda in the Sahel or Maghreb, while more and more attacks are happening in North Nigeria. So the people on the streets in Nigeria understand that the Wahhabi death squad's attacks in Nigeria are all been conducted by the French, English, and the Americans, and the Nigerian military and security services that are collaborating against their own people in this ploy to depopulate villages in the north of Nigeria, and to cause these strifes specifically in Shia communities in north of Nigeria. This is all now become very clear to Nigerian citizens, and I think these conclusions are spreading around the whole region, from Senegal all the way to Kenya. We are seeing the same reactions within people trying to make change and copy the trajectory of Ibrahim Traore in their own countries.
I believe what we're looking at, the worldwide phenomenon, that this is it for the empire. That's it, that the empire is struggling. The empire to me looks like a man who falls in the water who can't swim, and he's just grabbing in all directions, trying anything he can pull him to anything, and just in a complete and total panic. If you look at what's happening with China, the US empire is angry with China, and they're like, oh no, they're going to be more economically more powerful than we are. And so they're putting all this tariffs on China and everybody. Well, this is totally backfiring on them. And China's saying, well, okay, fine. Let's see who can last this out the longest. And everybody here knows, Americans are soft and mushy. They don't have the guts. You know what I mean? They don't have the backbone for empty shelves and suffering. They're not ready for that. I believe that it all started with the Ukraine conflict, when they're like, we can come up to Russia's border and do anything we want. Russia says, okay, we're going to fight that out, right? So you've got the Ukraine conflict. What's interesting about that? And you can see where I'm going here, but here's something interesting about the Ukraine conflict. Right now, literally, J.D. Vance said to the Europeans, we don't need vassals, we need partners. The Europeans are literally screaming, no, we want to be vassals. Why won't you let us be vassals? And I'm like, they're screaming literally. Your master is saying to you, I'm tired of you being my slave. I can't afford to keep you on my back anymore. Basically, what the U.S. is saying to them is, we can't afford to feed these slaves anymore. Slaves, you're going to have to go earn your own food. We can't afford to feed you anymore. And the slaves are like, oh, please, let me be slaves and vassals. I've never seen anything like it. Your thoughts on that?
Yes. I mean, obviously, we always, I know the American educational system wants to tell its children that Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves because he didn't like slavery, but it was the economic impetus. The slavery wasn't making money anymore to the economy of the U.S., and that's why, especially the north of the Yankees at the time, basically. And that's why slavery ended. And in this situation, the financial arrangement that the U.S. had with all these European countries it occupied at the end of World War II is not beneficial anymore. The U.S. needed to, maintain these economies at a certain level of luxury in order to minimize any communist or leftist rise in these European countries, and now they're bringing the ultra right fascists into power in all those countries, so they don't need to worry anymore about spending. The fascists in France will beat anyone in the streets from the labor unions that puts their head up once, you know what I mean? If they don't like the cuts in salaries and services, that's what's going to happen. So there's that change happening, and obviously those that are going to master in the White House and saying, "Just leave me in the kitchen, okay? And I'll make sure all those who you kick out into the field, out of the field into the wilderness, will never come back." This is, this is what we will see in the leadership of Europe and Canada and Australia that want to stay doing business with the U.S. Ultimately, the United States, we saw, how even these cutbacks on subsidized jobs in other countries of the Europe and North America is now going to carry over not only into industry but also into arts. You saw that tweet by Trump talking about how Hollywood is losing all this money because all these films and TV shows are being produced in other countries. And the biggest loser is going to be Canada. I know half of Montreal probably, or half of Vancouver, works in production of American TV shows and movies, and it's been now 3 months. I know people in the unions that work on films and TV shows in Montreal. It's 3 months that they have no jobs because they're cutting back any of the filming in Canada. So that's going to happen to all the arts industries in Europe and Australia also, who have been subsidized by having these Hollywood studios produce their content in those countries.
Yeah, well, the other part of it is people aren't watching the Hollywood crap anymore. Two things are happening in Hollywood. Number one, Hollywood has been so morally discredited because there's no place in America that supports the genocide more than Hollywood. So people are, sick and tired and angry at Hollywood over the genocide. Number two, every movie is the same exact movie. A group of diverse women are in control of everything, and they're the police chief, they're the mayor, they're the president, and they're a superhero that flies around with a cave beating up men who are mostly gay. You know what I mean? I mean, that's what it is. Realistically, Hollywood is now simply a reversal of gender. The women are all macho, and the men are like gay or trans or something. I don't know what it is, but I can care less. However people live their life, that's not my concern. I'm just saying, I don't know what the point of is saying now the women have to be masculine and the men have to be feminine. And if there's a gay person in a movie, whatever, who cares, right? There's gay people in real life, but every movie is the same exact movie. If there's 4 women, one of them's black, one of them's white, one of them's Asian, and one of them's actually a man, right? and so it's like people are like, you're making the same movie over and over again. What happened to good movies? They don't care about making a good movie. Every movie is teaching us a cultural lesson about how women overcome the patriarchy or crap like that, right? And so this isn't art anymore coming out of Hollywood, so people don't really mostly watch it anyway.
Look, just to be fair, it all started with everybody being Jewish, okay, on these movies and TV shows. You'd think, watching American TV shows and movies, even before this woke tsunami 10 years ago, you'd think that 30% of the population in the US is Jewish because every second character in any TV show was Jewish. Do you remember Independence Day when the rabbi asked him
yes.
and Will Smith says, "I'm Jew, not Jewish," and the guy tells him, "Well, nobody's perfect."
Yeah, right.
I mean, this has been the norm in every Hollywood movie. You barely can ever turn on a Hollywood movie or TV show that the word Israel and Karmaga and Jewish and Kabbalah doesn't come out. And so I don't think the American public can complain about the other diversity
Right.
until they deal with this one, the most glaring one, and nobody wants to touch it. I mean, honest to God, the other thing that about Hollywood movies and TV shows, it's been now almost a decade that every character is done dysfunctional, right?
Yes.
They've
Yes.
normalized dysfunctionality. Whether it started with comedy shows, and then it became everything: adventure movie, love movie, whatever you wanted. Every character is dysfunctional. Apparently, this is normal that everybody's just wacko in their head. And so they've normalized dysfunctionality completely. This is above and beyond, of course, the dysfunctionalities on other levels than just mental that we're talking about. And, so I don't know how the American public artists are going to save the industry, but it seems like it's a little bit too late, and people are already beginning to shift to watching other media productions. Obviously with the Koreans and the Chinese leading the way right now with the biggest shift of viewers happening, and that's just understanding how global culture is shifting, and how that is also connected to the power of production of industry, and the how what people are accepting as something that they want to be like. It used to be the rest of the world wanted to be like America. The American dream was sold to everybody. Now nobody wants the American dream, but they're looking at China and Korea, rising into these heights without having to genocide half of the planet or loot the half of the planet's resources. And they're saying, you know what, I want to be Chinese. Maybe I can learn something from Chinese culture. Maybe I can learn from Chinese dramas and Chinese adventure movies. And that's how, I think it's impossible for the United States to stop this flow of cultural ideas that is moving now around the globe.
Well, a big part of it, I'll say this, is and people can look it up. The CIA and the Defense Department has a huge presence in Hollywood. So really, everything is foreign policy. The only thing we get now is propaganda, and it's all related to foreign policy. Every show, everything, everywhere, every show you look on, they're going to have the colors, that blue and yellow. I call it blue yellow, the color of propaganda, the color of the Ukrainian flag. Every show, every movie, every advertisement for every company, everywhere has that color of the Ukrainian flag everywhere. So realistically, it's nothing but propaganda. People want to watch on the waterfront. You know what I mean? They want to watch a good movie. And so what we've gone from was in the 1960s, where movies were lily white and there was no people of any color or anything like that, to the swung all the way the other, which was propaganda. Now it's swung all the other way, and now there's nobody who's like white or straight or anything like that. You know what I mean? So all we get is propaganda. What they want us to, that we don't just get some good movies where some people thought maybe we'll have some aliens or something and they'll attack the earth and maybe we won't have to throw the propaganda in with it. No, we can't get that. Not even zombies. One of my favorite zombie movies was World War Z. People should watch World War Z, because what happened in World War Z? They're trying to figure out what's going on around the world. And where did they go to? Israel. And who's doing the best fighting the zombies? Israel. And what are the Israelis doing? They've got a wall. Literally, they built this wall not for apartheid, to keep the zombies out. And what literally what happens? they let all of these Muslim people inside, and they're so nice. They let all the Muslims inside to stay so they'll be safe. But the stupid old Muslims start singing, and they sing too loud, and all the zombies come in and attack them. It's all the fault of the Muslim. I mean, this is the worst propaganda. It's the worst propaganda you've ever seen in your life. But that's movie after movie in Hollywood. So who the hell wants to watch that crap? At any rate, do you have any final words before we go back to, as I'm bringing up FreePalestine.video?
Yeah, I know. Talking about zombies, there's The Last of Us, and you saw Pedro. What's his name? The actor from The Last of Us and The Mandalorian. Pedro. I'm bad in names. Point is, he had posted support for Gaza and against the genocide over the summer, while the director of The Last of Us is a Zionist supporter of the genocide. And by the second episode of this season of The Last of Us, they killed off the character.
Oh, of course. He's
the main character, the second main character other than the little girl. So it just shows you how vicious working in Hollywood is. Obviously, Pedro has worked on so many, award-winning TV shows and movies that the guy is not going to be harmed at this moment. He's going to get royalties till the end of his life.
But he probably won't get any work. That's the thing about it. FreePalestine.video. That's right, FreePalestine.video. How awesome is this? Look at this fantastic work that's being done here. Oh, there we go. This is the way I want to do it. There you go. So you can see it. Look at that. Fantastic, clear video. You've got field reports. You've got military operations there you can watch. There's latest episodes available. And of course, most importantly, you can donate, help fund their community. And also, if you notice, whenever you donate, you can do it one time or monthly. And that allows you, even if it's a small amount, even if it's not a lot, right? Particularly if there are people who think, well, I can't afford anything. I can give $5. Well, maybe you can afford to give $5 a month, a few pounds a month, as it were, or a few euros, whatever the case may be, a month. So if you can only do a little bit, then just make it monthly. That's fine. It's called, in business world, it's called RMR, recurring monthly revenue, and RMR is very important. So give what you can. Donate to FreePalestine.video. Also, make sure that you go to the website regularly to get updated. And of course, this is the important part. There's 638 people watching. We need you to do two important things if you don't do anything else. Sure, like, subscribe. Yeah, all that stuff's good. Two things you need to do. Number one, share FreePalestine.video on all your social media platforms and put a little note by the post where you ask people to donate. Now, that's number one. Number two, share this on all your social media platforms so people can see this video and they'll get all of the information out of it, and they'll understand how important it is to go to FreePalestine.video regularly and for them to share it, and we can kind of get something going here. Make sure you follow me on Rockfin. Make sure you follow me on Rumble. You follow me on Telegram. If you can afford to, you see all the ways scrolling across the bottom that you can support the channel. And of course, if you want to send something now, I even have my PO box. I got a PO box up, PO box 32. You'll see it scrolling. People have said, hey, I want to send you a book. I want to send you a letter, donation, whatever you want. I check my box a couple times a week. So if you want to mail something to me now using snail mail, feel free to do that. Laith Marouf, thank you very much. Keep up the good work over at FreePalestine.video. And all of our viewers and myself at the channel, thank you. And we're going to continue to visit it regularly and to share your website.
See you soon.
All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. We're out.